Right, Damion. Thank you, buddy. Hey, we've got 4 wonderful discussion questions here, and they're in the chat line. You see Steve has posted them. They're in the notes that you have hopefully in front of you, and would love to hear from some of you. And just just give me a signal or just unmute yourself and jump in. But the first one is, are you living a life of boldness today? And if so, what story can you share that you had where you had to be bold, where you had to, step up? So anybody got a response to that question initially? Don't be shy now. I know you've had to be bold. I know you've had to step up. Scott, go for it.
Yeah, Damion, thank you for this message. Always timely. The boldness is so key for me. A lot of things lately, but your point here, boldness comes from the Holy Spirit. And I got to get myself out of the way every day. I know I've shared this so much with Rod, but I've got to die to myself. If myself wants to retreat, unless every day I say, God, I want more of you, less of me in every situation. So that's been my prayer as I start my day out. Interesting, for this year, my wife and I have been called to step up and lead a whole new marriage ministry that our church is going to be starting this next fall. And we start tonight, actually. And she and I have been praying about how he's going to use our blended marriage for 6.5 years. And, we're very excited about it. But what we want to make sure is it's not us, it's him as we lead. Because I don't want Scott's plan to get in the way. I want his plan to take hold, to make a difference in marriages. And the thing I love about this ministry, it's about coming alongside and discipling people, discipling the husband and the wife, because that's the key to any successful marriage, that each of us have to be in a walking relationship, growing relationship with Jesus Christ. And so that's taking that step of boldness tonight, to lead this and to see what God's going to do. Another area right now is with my work as a therapist, I have a chance to work with patients in the hospital every single day. So taking the moments when God prompts me to pray with them and encourage them, and opportunities to share the gospel. So those are some moments with that. But God has just been working in my heart more the last year to step out, like you're talking about, to be bold. And it's, within the personality that I have, I think that's key, right? It's, I'm not a gregarious guy. I mean, I'm not going to be just all over the place, so to speak. But it's just being comfortable within my skin, how God created me, but to advance the gospel message. That's what he's teaching me. Less of me, more of him. My one word this year is seek. So seek in every area of my life, but obviously seeking him and just really being open to what he's trying to teach me. And then that boldness to live that out, to be obedient in what he's sharing with me. So good.
He's got great examples of how boldness in action, because like you say, you could have stepped aside. Well, it's somebody else's job. This is something that, but you knew God had uniquely prepared you and Lori for this, and you boldly, confidently stepped out, not in your own strength, because you died yourself, but you said, Lord, your strength come about, your boldness come about. So awesome story. Hey, anybody else want to jump in on that question? Are you living life of boldness? And if so, what story can you share?
I liked what Scott said about learning to be comfortable in your own skin. Scott's not Peter. I'm not Peter. I'm not Rod Handley. I used to use Charles Stanley. I'm not any of those guys. I'm Steve White. So, and you're Scott. And so, with the skills that we have, the people we are, the people that God created us to be, we're out there in the marketplace. We're there with our family every day. So we're uniquely created in God's image. How do we use the people? How, as we have become the men that we are, how do we communicate with who we are, the message of the gospel in our lifestyle? Acts 4:13, I remember a guy by the name of Greg Griffin. When I met him, for the first time back in the early 90s, he was talking about Acts 4:13. And it was just this idea that when people saw that these guys were not schooled, there was nothing extraordinary about them at all. But they could tell that those guys have been with Jesus. You know, that's my time with the Lord every day. When I walk out the door and I'm in my business and somebody's hurting and I offer to pray for them. You know, years ago, I offered to pray for this couple. They lost somebody and they said, no, thank you. That really stunned me. But you offer to do stuff like that. You offer to help. I want them to know that you know, without me saying it, but sometimes you got to say it. I've been with the Lord, and hopefully that's the thing that's making the difference in my life, is I do the things that I do. So, but I like what you said, Scott. And Damion, I liked what you say about faithfulness. It's consistency, falling in love with the process.
Yeah.
So just, you know, day in and day out trying to do that. So that's my 2 cents.
Love it, Steve. Anybody else want to jump in on that?
I got one thought. I tend to be an introvert. I don't believe that, but every test I take says I'm probably introverted. So, but anyway, as a result, I tend to focus inward and not so much outward to God or to others. I'm focused on, you know, what's going on with my life and everything. And so the one word that I came up with this year, and it's kind of from my music background, but the word is harmonize. And when you're trying to harmonize, when you're playing in a group with others, you got to quit focusing so much on what you're playing and try to listen to somebody across the circle or somebody. And you start to think, well, how can I stay linked in with them and make what he's trying to do better, you know? And so I kind of like this word because it goes into so many places. But one place is just mostly in your relationships with others and with you know, if you're trying to harmonize with them, you're trying to listen to what's going on in their life and try to see maybe some skill or something you have. How can you apply it to what they're doing or help them in some way that might make, or even a project somebody's doing, just anything in general. If you want to harmonize with them, you have to get in touch with what their goals are and what they're doing. And I'm not used to doing that because, like I say, I tend to be more of an introvert. So, and you have to, this boldness, you have to be bold. And the one thing that bothers me is this urgency to do something. You know, once you get retired, you know, that your urgency from work and stuff kind of goes away, and you find you can, you know, if you don't get it done today, oh well, you got tomorrow, and which is not always the case. But that's kind of your thoughts. But the urgency to do something that will make a difference, you just have to kind of create that, or maybe. Again, if you believe you're not going to live forever, there really is an urgency there. But you just, you know, once you retire, you don't feel it as much. You get a little more relaxed and everything. So you have to almost make sure you live in some kind of urgency, or you basically sit around and watch TV and do nothing. You know, so you've got to push that. But this whole idea of harmonizing, I really kind of like. I hope the word works for me real well. I'm kind of right now. I'm sitting back waiting to see what God brings to me for this. For this harmonizing word. So
Hey Carl, that's a great insight, and so many truths there you shared about how harmonizing you know, forces you to not only listen but also to lead. So way to go. I love that. Hey, anybody else want to jump in on that? Boldness, put it in action.
Right, the boldest I've ever been evangelizing or praying with someone was at a discount tire store, and I went there to have the tires rotated and balanced, and I was sitting over having a cup of coffee, and this guy walks in, kind of I don't know, it seemed like he had red hair and kind of ruffled and just, you know, just nervous and, you know, just panicky. And I kind of watched him. He caught my eye, and he bellied up to the counter, you know, and I guess he had some kind of crisis with his car or tires or something. And I just watched him, and he was just you just tell he was just agonizing. And he kind of went over to the other side of the store, and I watched him a minute, and then the Spirit really did lead me to go over, and I say, "Hey man, what's going on? You seem in a hurry, or kind of frustrated. And he kind of shared, he said, well, yeah, I'm late for a meeting. I'm just late. And what he was doing, he was going to a family intervention that either his sisters and brothers had called or his dad or somebody. I don't know what was going on. He didn't really share that. But he said something about, well, my relationship with my dad's not good. And, we've got this intervention and I'm late for it and all that. So anyway, and I kind of calmed him down a little bit. And I went back over and sat down and he was still, and then I just went over and I said, I want to pray with you. I want to pray with you right now in the discount tire store, leaning on they had a side counter over there. And I did. And I shared with him that I didn't have a good relationship with my dad either. And, it's, I talked about the importance of family and, you do need to go to the meeting and listen up. And we just prayed. And I've never done that before. At a discount tire store, but you got to be aware of what's going on, and it melted him. I mean, he just calmed down and he got his tire done and he went on and made the meeting a little bit late, I guess, but I just tried to encourage him to do what he had to do and was called to do. Yeah.
Hey, Jerry, that's a great example of just thinking I should pray for this guy, but I'm going to go do it right now.
Yeah.
And that takes a bold act, especially in a public forum, a public place. But you know what? That spoke to him, but it probably ministered to people that you even weren't aware of that were probably observing and watching what was going on.
That's possible. Yeah.
Sure is. And maybe give them boldness the next time they're in that opportunity. That's good. Anybody else?
I don't know if I should share this or not, but one time I sat in between Rod and Larry generally, and I was watching a basketball game. I don't know if you remember this, Rod, but we were watching Lee Summit North and Lee Summit West, which are crosstown rivals, go at it. And the group of boys from Lee Summit North just didn't play very strong. And I felt like I needed to go into the locker room and encourage them in a mild way, I guess you could say. And so I asked Rod and Larry if they thought that would be a good thing, and they kind of just didn't say a word. You could kind of hear a mouse peeing over in the corner if you the other side of the gym. But I said, I told them again, I said, I think I'm supposed to go down there and talk to the boys because we had lost. And it was a game really that I didn't feel like we should have lost. But the boys just didn't have any courage. So I asked the principal if it would be okay to talk to them. This is right after the game. And he said, I need to ask the athletic director. I asked the athletic director. He said, I need to ask Mike Hillbolt, the coach. I asked Mike, and he said, go ahead. And I lit the boys up one by one. I asked for accountability, and I said, man to man, nobody showed up. They got guys who got dunked on. We had guys who had no points. We had guys who had set a personal record for themselves the couple days before and ended up with no points. Literally, they had no heart. And I chewed them up. Then I chewed the coaches up. And I literally felt like, as a man in the community and as a Black man in the community, they needed to know that that was not acceptable. And before I got home, my daughter knew about it. And everybody in town, I guess, had found out about it. And my daughter was crying because she had lost her friends and this, that, and the other. But I still felt like that was a message that I was supposed to deliver. And I delivered it. Through the years, I've gotten more comments on that interaction with kids probably than I've gotten from the best football game I've ever had in my life. And I still think it was needed, and I don't think the boys will ever forget it. I know Mike Hillboat will never forget it because he reminds me about it all the time. But sometimes I think it's necessary to step into the waters and pull some people out or slap them. And that's what I did that day. And I think I'm better for it. I don't know if Rod and Larry ever sit with me in a game again, but I did that. And I think the Lord was the one who led me in there to give that speech.
So a couple of comments. Yes, I do remember it very well. In fact, I was kind of like, really? And I guess my silence was deafening because I was like, go for it, man. I mean, if the Spirit is leading, go for it. And the reason I knew you should go for it, and I didn't verbalize it very well, was I knew the motive behind it was love. And when love is the motive, and you know, to say nothing, especially when the Lord had prompted you in such a way, would have been to dishonor the Lord and dishonor those young men. And sometimes you have to say hard things, but you love those kids so much, and you knew they had allowed themselves to not be courageous, to not be the men they had called to be. And as I recall, and correct me if I'm wrong, Bobby, that became a turning point, not just in that season for those guys, but for some of them, it changed their perspective on life and their perspective on how they were going to handle the next opportunity that was put in front of them. So the Lord used you in a powerful way. I'm so glad that you responded to the leading of the Spirit, because it really was a Spirit-led response. I was not the one to communicate that. You were, and you delivered it with passion. You delivered it with love at the core.
In 2005, I had a quadruple bypass heart surgery, and I got to that. Am I on? Yeah.
Yep.
And I got to that point because God put a desire in my heart to go do a mountain hike on a 14,000-foot mountain, which is something I would never do. So anyway, I get in the process of getting checked out. I realized I was discovered that I had 4 blocked arteries, and so I was off work for 2.5 months. When I went back to work, people who knew me would ask me, "Oh, did you have a heart attack?" I said, "No, I didn't have a heart attack," and described how God had put that desire in my being to go do a mountain hike. And so I gave God all the credit for that. And I had to wait in the hospital 2 days and 3 nights. And during that time, I had no anxiety, none, including when I was being wheeled into the operating room. I knew, I guess God had something else for me to do. And I was 60 years old at the time. And but anyway, so I love sharing that story with people who some I knew were Christians, some I knew were not, and I still do today. Once in a while, we'll be talking to somebody about medical conditions we've had, and so I can tell them how God saved my life in 2005.
Love it, Larry. Thank you. You guys, I'm reading. I'm going to read from Hebrews 4:16. It says, "Let us therefore draw near with confidence to the throne of grace, that we may receive mercy and may find grace to help in time of need." And the cool thing is, because of what Christ did on the cross, we can boldly and confidently approach him with whatever we're in the middle of, and know that he'll meet us in that in that brokenness, meet us and help us. I share that verse because 3 days ago, my son Derek reached out to me, and he had to confront a member of his staff about a sin that was needed to be addressed. To not address this would have been a very unbold move and a very ungodly move. And he just approached me and how can I deal with this? And I just said, man, the truth hurts, but you got to deal with it, very vigorously. And so, anyway, I'm really pleased to report that Derek's spirit in reaching out and doing something that was going to take a lot of courage has resulted in such an amazing thing. As part of it, and I won't go into the gory details of the whole story, but I asked him to reach out to a mutual friend of mine who helps people with recovery and restoration issues. In fact, some of you remember the name Mark Dennison. He has a ministry called There's Still Hope. And I love the title of his ministry. He spoke here at TGIW last June. And I said, would you contact Mark? Because I think Mark has some resources that would be really helpful in not only correcting this young man, how to bring healing and hope and restoration to the situation. And anyway, Derek called me last night and was so relieved. He says, Dad, he said, this guy was the perfect guy to connect this young man to. And there's a 90-day program that he's now going to be in that's going to help bring healing and hope and restoration to this young man's life. And Derek was willing to humble himself to boldly access the throne of God, to boldly access resources that he wasn't even aware of. And the Lord really came through. But I kept thinking, what if he had just not been bold? What if he had just said, well, I'm going to try to fix this myself? What if I'm going to rely on my own strength? He would not be anywhere close to the place he's at, now. But he really applied, Hebrews 4:16 to this situation. And you could just sense the relief that Derek had last night. His dad, he goes, it's just so neat that I was able to get the help I needed, the hope I needed, the plans I needed to help this situation get resolved in a very, very godly way. So anyway, it was an act of boldness, Anybody else got a story or an example? Hey, Damion, do you want to share what Jack just put in the chat line and the resource there?
Yeah, so he asked what devotional that I did when I got some of this content from. It's actually called Bold Leaders on your YouVersion Bible app. You just type in Find Plans and Bold Leaders. It's a 7-day plan. You should see like a little person hiking like a little mountain. And it shares a lot of the characteristics of what I shared today. And so, which I thought was just so powerful, I had to share it. So if you want more in depth of each of those characteristics I talked about today, you can definitely hit on those in that devotional. So.
Excellent. Bold Leaders. It's a YouVersion Bible 7-day plan. And I access those all the time. So thank you, Damion, for that as well. Anybody else on the subject of boldness today?
I was going to say one other thing. So, with that young girl that came to know Jesus, one of the biggest things that I realized is you got to get them plugged in quickly or they fall back into their old habits. And one of those things was, for me, it was getting her around godly young women, specifically college women, that she can just see what it means to actually walk and talk, and, actually it was just, I think it was 2 weeks ago. Yeah, it was 2 weeks ago. Oh, not actually 2 weeks, it was last week. My bad, last week. And I saw her with another girl and I'm sitting at a basketball game. I could see the across from her and I knew both girls. And one of them actually caught me, like I was actually watching them, and they kind of just like moved their hands away from each other. And here's again, you can say, you know what, I tried and I'm not going to say nothing. I'm just going to let it be. Or are you bold enough to say something? And so I text the girl, I said, hey, don't fall back into those old habits. those old habits will lead you back to the same place you were before that conversation we had. And it will lead to more hurt, lead to more just division and more just confusion. And so I'm actually going to be able to see her today at school. So I'm going to follow up with that text because she didn't text me back. So that means she definitely felt convicted. And because none of my text was condemning or anything like that, but I knew there was conviction through that text. And knowing the fact that, hey, like, if you are wanting to, like, me and the teacher, which is she's an awesome woman of God as well, and we've been working with her and several students. And so be praying for me as I follow up with that conversation with her, just because I just know that God has a huge plan and huge mark on her life. And I just don't want her to continue to fall back into the lies and the traps of the enemy because of what her peers say or what she thinks. And so just really getting that protection and that circle of accountability for her with women. So keep me in prayer as I communicate that with and touch base with that young girl today at school. So
Love it. Love it. Love it. Love it. Any other reaction or response? We kind of focus on question one here, but any other something you see there in the discussion questions that you want to discuss this morning? You know, I look at question two, and we started off by this session by talking about the life of Harold Finch. Harold Finch lived a life of boldness, and we alluded to, and Greg even pointed out, he met with government leaders around the world. He met with many of his peers. Think about, you know, the scientific community that is so anti-Bible, anti-God, so many, because, you know, they're too intellectual, too smart. Harold would just go in and be very, very, very bold, poised, articulate. You know, he led well, and he wasn't afraid to initiate difficult conversations and bring the Lord into those conversations. You know, in an environment, a place where people could have easily mocked him, he was not going to be denied. He was a man of boldness, no question. Anything there you want to discuss?
Hey, I would like to have prayer for Joe Hatcher. He has surgery today, thoracic surgery. Hopefully.
So in case you get, Joe is a big part of our Zoom calls. He comes on his iPad too a lot of times, but he has a very, very significant lung infection and has been intubated and sedated and on a ventilator for the last few days. So Bobby, the surgery was this morning, is that correct?
They don't know. I think it's going to be around noon. They keep moving it.
Okay.
But they were going to try to do it yesterday, and they were over the weekend as well. But because he's in a stable condition now, which is awesome, but he is intubated, and we want to try to get him out of that state. He is responding and stuff, and he's doing really well. But he's still in ICU, and he still needs this surgery to get this fluid out of his, and an abscess out of his lung, and get that resolved.
what hospital is he at? St. Luke's?
Down at the main one. Yeah. St. Luke's on the Plaza. In the Heart Institute.
We're going to pray for not only Joe, but I'm also going to pray for Bobby's son, Grayson. He is having surgery on Thursday. Bobby's flying out to Annapolis, the Naval Academy, to be there with Grayson for the week to help get him back up and moving. And then also, I noticed earlier on the line, Andre Fantasma was on the call too, and Andre's having knee replacement surgery today. In fact, I was shocked to see him on the line. He may be at the hospital in the waiting room waiting and trying to get in this morning. But why don't we just close today by praying for those three situations today. We're going to boldly approach the throne of grace. Okay, guys? So Lord, on behalf of Joe Hatcher and Grayson and Andre, all either in the midst of surgery right now or hours ahead or in the next day or so, all three are going under. And I pray, Lord, that you'll be with each of those situations. You know exactly what each of them are facing. You know In Joe's situation, the potentially Joe could lose his life in the next few hours, because this is a very, very serious situation he's in the midst of. But Lord, we just come to you and pray on behalf of Joe and on behalf of Grayson, on behalf of Andre, for your healing touch and your strength and your power to get them through this. And Lord, we eagerly look forward to just seeing what you're going to do in and through these surgeries for your glory. We pray this in Jesus' name, amen. All right, gentlemen, God bless you. Good to see you today. We love seeing you every Tuesday and some of you on Wednesday as well. God bless. Carry on. Keep fighting that good fight of faith, okay?